Well, it starts with, again, going back to this very, very important question. What is it that I want to feel? What is it that I want to feel?
To stay
And
with
then
that
give
core.
yourself permission to really name it. Now, where we start to become more on purpose is when we get more granular than, I want to feel good, right? A lot of people just say, oh, I don't feel good. Well, sure, we all want to feel good. But you've got to get very specific about, well, what does good mean to you? Double click on that. What does that actually mean? Because my good might be very different than your good, Cami, which might be very different than the other person's good. So we have to get very clear on what is it I'm actually after? What is it that really is important to me? And unless we are truly tapping into that, what we end up doing is we follow this invisible imaginary directive that is out there in the ether, and it's all the shoulds. Well, I should be working harder on this. I should be optimizing my health. I should. And that is the last thing from being on purpose. We're just in this rat race, a frenzied rat race, constantly trying to better ourselves when nothing was really broken in the first place.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. When I wrote my book, Fire Dancer, Your Spiral Journey to a Life of Passion and Purpose several years back, I wrote it through the lens of my journey of leaving behind my corporate identity to rediscover me, my essence, my passions, my beliefs, and yes, my purpose. In the writing of that book, I came to recognize that the spiraling of my life journey had led me to the exact space that I was meant to be in my life at that time. It's truly magical to look at life through that lens. Life is happening for us and not to us. Every bump along the way, every story, every milestone, every experience are a part of what I call a spiral journey. We are picking up experiences, wisdom, skills that will lead us to wherever it is that we are going. No accidents, right? With the evolution of that spiraling journey, the right people show up, the right opportunities show up, the right opportunities that we leave behind, the right lessons are learned, setting us up for that next phase of who we are. And the more aligned I got in that journey, the more I embodied me, the more my inner fire lit up. And yes, thus the title Fire Dancer. Now, I love that title, and believe me, I had experts telling me from all over that it wasn't the title I should use. It didn't fit the formula. But if you know me, I love to break the rules on formulas, especially when my entire body was telling me that, yes, this is exactly what this is about, dancing with the fire within. We walk with and in our inner fire when we're aligned and living in our passions. It's the bright light that we bring into the world. It's how we're seen. It's how we're heard. It's how we make a difference with the gifts we were born into this world with. And what I've come to discover after over a decade of being an entrepreneur is that my business also has its own spiral journey with each evolution of growth that it moves through and that I move through with it. The universe delivers up the next round of possibilities, and we get supported, and we have the right people drop in. We divert our old ways. We drop in new ways. And it's just as equally as magical. I am most lit up in my business when I'm tending to my inner fire and my light. Fire Dancer lives within me and within my business. We are going to carry on this theme today with our guest, Amy Eliza Wong. Amy is the founder of Always on Purpose. She is an executive leadership coach. She's an author. She's a facilitator working with organizations such as Salesforce, Roku, LinkedIn, and more. Amy offers transformative leadership development and cutting-edge communication strategies to executives and corporate teams around the world, as well as institutions, including Stanford University and the University of California at Berkeley. Amy's debut book, Living on Purpose, shows readers how to feel more connected to the people around them and be truly satisfied by the life they're leading. She refers to purpose in a verb format versus a noun format. And I love this. It's true embodiment. It's the fire we walk in. Amy has a passion for helping people discover meaningful joy and satisfaction in their lives, break free from their fears and false perceptions, and embody their fullest potential. In short, she thrives on helping others live and lead on purpose. She is on a mission to raise the consciousness of the planet and help others get off their proverbial hamster wheel and achieve peace of mind and live with true intention. You can see why I'm excited to bring you today's guest. Let's meet Amy Wong. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio. Amy, it's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Cami. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Oh, I am too. I'm really excited for this conversation. I was just looking through your journey, getting to the space that you're at right now. I mean, you've been in, you started out in Sun, you went to IDEO, which I always thought IDEO was the coolest company. I've watched their work for a long time. So I think that's a really cool space that you were in before you jumped into the world of leadership consulting and coaching. And so tell us a little bit about this journey of you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you. IDEO is the coolest company, by the way.
Yeah.
I had a blast when I was there. Yeah, it is. It is truly one of a kind.
And tell people what they do, just because I think it's such a cool thing of what they do.
In short form, they do really, really cool design. The things that you marvel at, like, wow, where did this come from? Chances are it came from IDEO.
Yeah, yeah, so cool.
Yeah. So my journey, I'm so blessed to have been on the path that I've been on. I guess it starts really with, at a really young age, I knew, I knew I loved to teach. I love teaching. But really what drove me were the really big questions like, gosh, why are we here? What does it mean to thrive? How do we make sense of this thing called existence? And I found myself just so enamored with these questions. And I'm certain that that's what led to my passion of math. So I studied pure mathematics at Berkeley. And in the realm of mathematics, being a mathematician, that's what led me to Sun Microsystems. So then I ended up in tech. But leading up to that point, I found myself, I was always teaching, always leading, always facilitating. In high school, I had my own tutoring business.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was super fun. I also taught music because I'm a pianist as well, and that was a huge part of my life. Yeah. And what I found, going through high school, and then I did that in college. I was teaching math at Cal. And then when I went into Sun, same thing. I was in these technical roles. Sometimes I'd be in roles that weren't super technical, but I'd always find myself as a go-between, translating between development and end users and facilitating thought, facilitating teaching, translating. And it hit me that I was like, gosh, you know what I really love and what I'm really, really good at? It's not so much this transmission of information. Well, the information's information. Like, I'm enthralled by all things math and music. It's really partnering with someone or being with someone or a group of people and really listening for what is it that they don't know that's keeping them from really moving forward or closing the gap. Or
so you could see kind of between the lines where you needed, where things were kind of hidden.
Yes. And I used math and music back then as the medium to really play with this skill. And it was so fun. And
that's cool. How did you use music in the mix of that?
Oh, same thing. Well, just again, it's, when you're a musician, like with anything, you're constantly mastering and constantly learning. You're closing gaps between, in knowledge and in skill. And in order to do that, there are unknowns, and they're the obvious unknowns, but the obvious unknowns aren't the interesting things, because if you know what you don't know, you can go and solve that gap. And that's with any subject.
Right.
And it's not that holds us back. It's the stuff we don't know to ask. It's the stuff that we don't know that's holding us back from our greatness in any subject. So that really was what I was unknowingly, somewhat knowingly, really just chewing with, playing with. And I'd found myself in those same patterns through Sun. And then after my first child was born, and he's now going to be 15 next week, which is crazy. Yeah, he graduates from 8th grade today, which is nuts for me. But I know, right? So that wake-up call of having a child, like there's nothing like being slapped in the face with, in a good way, but you're really forced to confront who you are. Yeah. And I had to really take a good hard look at myself. And I realized, like, oh my gosh, I am not attending to all of me. I thought it was my job. I thought it was my accomplishments. And now this love I have
This
for my
other
child.
thing.
Yeah. It's just highlighting how I actually really don't know myself because, and really what the catalyst for this was that I couldn't go back to work. And that was devastating to me because
Because
I'd
that's
worked.
such an important part of you.
Yes, it was my identity.
Yeah.
My professional life was my identity, my accomplishments, and I was on the fast track. And now I just couldn't go back. And it wasn't because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom necessarily, but what I was confronted with is if I'm not going to spend my time with him, it better be for something so important that truly is my life's purpose. And I wouldn't give up my time with my son to go do something that is just a job.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. And it was
Yeah.
so discombobulating. So I had this massive breakdown first, and then breakthrough that, you know, in short form, I'm going about this thing of life all wrong. It's not about figuring it out. It's about feeling it out. So I had this massive epiphany that changed me in a moment. And I realized that everything, and here's the bigger aha that came to me, everything that we want as humans, everything we think we want, whether that's more money, a bigger home, a new job, to retire, to take your company public, it's not for the thing. You want it because you think it's going to make you feel a certain way. What you want is a feeling, not a thing. And we use the thing as a proxy to get to the feeling. And so I, in this wildly eye-opening epiphany, realized, oh my gosh, I've been navigating by chasing things, not the feeling. So what would happen if I completely ditched that way of navigating, which most of us, almost all of us do, and just followed the feeling? What would this lead me to?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was in that I really woke up to and honored, okay, there is this other side to me. And my inspiration, I quickly, so the whole motto was at this point, I'm not going to strategize my way to a goal. I'm going to only listen to inspiration, even if it doesn't make sense. And so what that meant was if I felt like that feeling of, oh, I'm going to read this book. Oh, I'm going to go to the seminar. Oh, this sounds, that feeling. I'm only going to follow that, even if it truly makes no sense. And I'm just going to trust it's going to take me in the right direction. And oh my gosh, Cami, it was truly like magic because one step led to the other in the most just significantly powerful and efficient way that before I knew it, I was enrolled in a master's program for transpersonal psychology. You know, my sweet husband, he was like, what are you going to do with this? And I was like, I don't know, but I have to study it. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And so what was so beautiful was in the midst of this degree, all of a sudden, every aspect of my life made sense. I was like, okay, I love this search for meaning and for truth. And the first part of my life was really mastering that from an objective left brain part of me. And now this part is really a right brain part. But together, it lends itself perfectly to coaching. So coaching found me in 2010, and it's just taken off. Now, IDEO got stuck right in there. So right as I'm getting my coaching business off the ground, my inspiration. I mean, this is the funniest story, Cami. This is so funny. So I'm in the middle of a paper. I'm not even finished with graduate school yet. I've got an infant. No, I'm not. No, actually, at this point, Aiden's a little older. So right, because I'm nearing the end of graduation. So now he's like 2. So I'm in the middle of a paper, and because I am so committed to listening to inspiration, I will drop anything to follow the feeling. So I'm in the middle of flow with this paper. And out of nowhere, I get hit with this thought, you should go and look at what's open at IDEO, which is just so random. I don't know what sparked that thought, but I thought, okay.
Some magic.
Yeah.
Universe.
So I'm like, there it is. It's the universe. So I'm like, okay. So I literally stop what I'm doing, go and I look it up. And I kid you not, they had just listed the role that was mine. And I'm reading this role and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my job. This is my job. And I got that feeling and the flutter and the butterflies and the open heart. And I'm like, and so it was effortless. Next thing I know, I'm now working at IDEO and I'm coaching at IDEO and I'm doing these amazing things. And it's really just been kind of this model that has now led me to here, now 2023. And
So in that, I mean,
magic.
and you talk about purpose. Your book is about purpose. It's your book is living on purpose. And
Yeah.
so we have this. You and I have this passion for finding purpose. My book is Fire Dancer: Your Spiral Journey to a Life of Passion and Purpose. So we've got this alignment in this. What does purpose mean to you? Because purpose can mean so many things to so many people.
Beautiful question. I think of purpose as a way of being more than a thing.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, thank you. And, to be fair, I wrote living on purpose because in this context, I think of on purpose really more of an adverb, not so much the noun, but this idea that we're fully awake and and in the driver's seat of our own life, harnessing choice
Yeah.
in the most rich and meaningful way that really is of responding to our moments of life rather than reacting to it, purposely, consciously creating a life and an experience of our choosing, not being a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
And that to me is what it's all about.
Yeah.
That to me, life doesn't, that's what we're after. That's what we want. That's why we want the things that we want. And so I do tend to separate kind of the on purpose nature from purpose itself. But here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
When we live on purpose, meaning when we live deliberately in the driver's seat, being entirely responsible for our own experience, we live into our purpose, which is this way of being, which is one in which we are feeling free, feeling peace of mind, feeling fulfilled, feeling creative, feeling connected. Really, it's a state of being which is of the ultimate flourishing.
So beautiful. So beautiful. I love that. And I love that you're leading with the living part of it, because to me that's you're just dropping in so naturally and the rest of it comes in around you. So really beautiful.
Thank you.
How do so if our listeners are listening, what advice do you give to them from the perspective of living into their purpose?
Yeah. Well, first, I would say fundamentally, we have to open our eyes to this false premise that we've kind of been indoctrinated to, which is that we've all kind of fallen prey to this quote unquote formula that we think is the right thing to do, the thing we should be doing, which is, okay, I'm going to work really hard so I can make lots of money, so I can be really successful, so that then I'll be happy. And we don't stop to question this formula we've been really kind of unknowingly fed, and all of us live by it. And it really starts with our educational system, where and there's nothing, and I'm not demonizing any of this, I'm just pointing out kind of the patterns we fall into. As children, it's like, follow the rules, get good grades so that you can make your teachers and parents happy. Okay, cool. And then you want to do this enough so that you can get into a good school, you can get into a good college, get a good degree, so that you can get a good job so that you can make a certain amount of money, make that certain amount of money with a certain level of prestige, so that then you will be free and then you will be happy. And we never, again, we're not asking ourselves, is this what we genuinely want? It's what we think we should be doing. And that's because we're attached to the thing, not the feeling. So the first thing I always encourage people to do is, instead of asking, what should I be doing? What job should I do? What should I create? What should I accomplish? I say, just hold off on that for a second. Let's pull in the ultimate variable that is the most important, which is, what do you want to feel?
Yeah.
Let's illuminate that.
Yeah.
Because if you say to me, Amy, I want to feel in control of my life. I want to feel present with my kids. I want to feel deep peace. I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel meaning. I want to feel joy. I want to feel content. I just want to feel, gosh, I just want to feel good. And if those are the words you use to feel good, and then you tell me, yeah, and I'm working really hard to get this senior VP role, and I've got to do it because this is just the next thing in my company, and, we're expected to be promoted. It's kind of the unspoken rule in our culture, every 2 years you're supposed to be promoted. And so, yeah, senior VP, that's what I'm working for. And then you bust your butt to make this happen. And then you find, and you're not even checking out that, oh, now I'm going to report to someone I actually don't like. I've just tripled my workload. I've tripled my scope. I have less resources. And we don't really examine, wait, you're following this stuff because you're not that totally contradicts with what you really want to feel. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
the biggest aha for folks and the biggest struggle for many folks is, they find themselves with great lives on paper, but then wonder why they're so hollow and miserable inside. And it's for this reason. They've
Yeah.
chased the thing, they've figured out the way to the thing, often forsaking the desired feeling. So they got to feel
Mm.
it out, not figure it out.
So good. So, so good. And I know you're a leadership coach. What does purpose have to do with leadership?
Well, oftentimes, so gosh, there's so much to dive into with this question. I'm like, ooh, where do I take this? So, purpose, in the way I'm speaking about it as a way of being,
Mm-hmm.
is one that's going to be optimized for creativity, for goodness, for positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
And this purpose, when we are truly aligned with purpose in this way, where we are in this state of being that is joyful and free and clear, that's what's most important. We're coming from this thriving part of ourselves, the thriving brain, not the survival brain.
Mm-hmm.
And if we genuinely want to lead and we want to create positive impact in the world, we have to be focused in such a way that we are focused on a vision of what we want to create versus running from failure or running from negative consequences or, running from the fears that hold us back. And so purpose is a big part of leadership because depending on how you relate to what you think your purpose is and what you're up to, it's going to dictate so much of how you show up and so much of the impact that you have on others around you. It's a really big conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really being true to you in the mix of all of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And being clear, and and those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hmm.
I love it. How can our listeners really live more on purpose right now?
Well, it starts with, again, going back to this very, very important question. What is it that I want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I want to feel?
To
And
stay
then
with
give
that core.
yourself permission, to really name it. Now, where we start to become more on purpose is when we get more granular than, I want to feel good, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people just say, well, I don't feel good. Well, sure, we all want to feel good.
Right.
But you've got to get very specific about, well, what does good mean to you? Double click on that. What does that actually mean? Because my good might be very different than your good, Cami,
Mm-hmm.
which might
Mm-hmm.
be very different than the other person's good. So we have to get very clear on what is it I'm actually after? What is
Yeah.
it that really is important to me? And unless we are truly tapping into that, what we end up doing is we follow this invisible imaginary directive that is out there in the ether, and it's all the shoulds. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
should be working harder on this. I should be optimizing my health. I should, and that is the last thing from being on purpose. We're just in this rat race, a frenzied rat race, constantly trying to better ourselves when nothing was really broken in the first place.
And I think what happens is that we get into this space of okay, we have clarity in what we want to feel, but we get pulled back or sucked back into other things just because there's so much noise around us on a day-to-day basis. What are some of the things you do just to really stay connected to that
Mm,
desire and that feeling?
that's such a powerful question. Well, it starts with very, very simply. I kind of break down kind of a procedure I go through or process I go through. Very simply, step one, you have to care. You have to be tapped into how you feel in your moments because how
Mm-hmm.
you feel is telling you how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't tend to think about it that way. What we tend to do is really put all of the focus on our thoughts. Like what I'm thinking about really is dictating how I'm doing. And not that that's necessarily bad, but if we really want to play this game and have fun with it and knock it out of the park, it starts with having to really care about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, the addendum of this is, and then you just have to decide you're intolerant of feeling crappy, right? And not to say
And
I'm
catching yourself too,
yeah,
right? And
exactly,
because so often
exactly.
people don't even realize that they're feeling
I-
crappy.
Because we become conditioned to the white noise of anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like the refrigerator humming in the background. We
Yeah.
become so conditioned to tolerate anxiety and discomfort and dis-ease and lack of fulfillment, and that we don't even recognize that it's there.
Right.
And the big opportunity here is to recognize that we are self-perpetuating that by virtue of our frame of mind, our mindset, what we tell ourselves, and how we're navigating. And so, very simply, if we decide, okay, I want to have fun with this, I want to do this, I'm going to care about how I feel.
Right.
So then, with that, yeah, okay, and I'm just gonna say no to self-imposed misery. All right, cool. So, so then I'm just gonna really check in with myself on a regular basis if I'm feeling this, like this expansive, kind of free, so energizing, forward-looking versus this constricted, right?
Yeah.
And it's using our feeling as an indicator as to how we're doing, because like your question was, how do you pull yourself back from getting swept into the tyranny of the shoulds? Well, you have to catch it. But it's hard to catch when you get swept into that ocean
Totally.
by
Be
your
aware.
thoughts.
That awareness
Yes.
all the time of,
Yes.
of checking in with it.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, with the thoughts, it's crazy. But if you care about how you feel, you're going to start to tell when you're like, whoa, wait, you know what? No, wait, no. Who says I have to be on social media 3 times a day? According to who? What big book in the sky? Like, no, I'm just not going to. No, it does not feel good to me. Yeah.
And making choices associated with that.
100%, yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. And I hear, all different, the whole spectrum. Some people say there's no such thing as imposter syndrome. Other people say, oh yeah, it's definitely real. Where do you fall in the spectrum of that?
Well, I think of imposter syndrome as just that very, very real, very human experience of self-doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
And it all hinges upon the neuroscience of our neurobiology and what actually life and what death mean to the brain. Now, something we don't talk about enough of, and that's why I wrote this book, because I'm on a mission to help people know this. Because once you know what I'm about to say, it all of a sudden the game starts to change and things begin to feel possible. Here it is. To the brain, death, right, is not necessarily lack of food, water, shelter. Death to the brain is rejection. And so you might be thinking, well, how is that the case? I mean, if you just look at this very simply, when humans are born, we're born, 1, survival brain dominant, and 2, entirely helpless. So the brain knows that in order to survive, mom or dad really have to buy in. So therefore, what is truly most fundamental is acceptance, safety, belonging, and approval. Then food, water, shelter will buy in, or that will come, right, from that buy-in. And so fundamentally, for each and every human on the planet, we have a wiring within us that responds to a sense of rejection in the same way it would respond to a tiger jumping out of a bush. It can't differentiate between, that tiger or, say, a colleague giving you a really unpleasant look in a meeting that looks judgmental. Like, to the brain, it's the same because it's trying to keep you alive. Exactly. Right. And so on a non-conscious and conscious level, we're doing everything we can to avoid that sense of rejection. And so naturally, from that fear, we have a very real experience of self-doubt. And that's the brain's and psyche's way of trying to protect us from the very, very real pain of rejection. By the way, side note, rejection literally registers as physical pain in the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, it registers as what's called the pain matrix. So that's why, notice how you talk about it. Like, do you remember your first heartbreak back in the day? Yeah. And you were like, oh my God, I feel like I'm dying, well, your brain thought you were dying. I mean, and notice how we talk about it. Oh, I'm crushed. It hurts so much. And I didn't get the job offer. Oh, this just is painful. Yeah. And you notice how we talk about it.
We change our tone and everything. Right?
Exactly. It's literally it's literally painful, and that's the brain's way of trying to protect us. And in the same way that it teaches us to not touch that hot stove, that pain is teaching us to not engage in this again so that you can optimize your survival. And so how does the brain do that? Well, let's put a layer of self-doubt so you don't put yourself out there so you might not get rejected. Right. So it's a very real experience that any healthy human is going to have,
Yeah.
and there's nothing shameful, wrong, or bad
No.
about it.
And I think, as entrepreneurs, it's even it's well, you get it everywhere, right? You get it everywhere. But I think as entrepreneurs, we're really putting ourselves out in bigger ways than you know than we. I mean, I certainly put myself out in a bigger way than I did back in my corporate days. And so when I think about what do we do with that? What do we do with that inner critic that's showing up? That self doubt. What's your recommendations there?
Oh, well, there's, I mean, we all have that inner critic, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say the first step is to really honor its role instead of demonize it. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
we've spent so many years with this really unhealthy relationship to the inner critic, thinking of it as the part of us that is evil and shouldn't be there, and let's expel it from our psyche and our system. And really honestly, you have to kind of look at it as this loving, loyal soldier that's there, that's been
Trying to
unknowingly
protect
trying to
you.
protect you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it really, and that inner critic, the birth of the inner critic starts really young. And my hypothesis, and I spell this out in Living on Purpose, is it's that first experience of significant perceived rejection in
mm-hmm.
our formidable years between 2 and 4, when we're learning
Mm-hmm.
language and we have an undeveloped brain, that it's that first experience that really kind of solidifies this part of ourselves that is now going to be there to protect us forevermore, the
Right,
birth of the inner critic. And so
right.
that inner critic is just there to protect you. And I have found that when you get that, what we're really afraid of is this primal fear of rejection, and that it's built in every single one of our systems. And I don't care who you are, don't let anyone talk you out of this. It is our neurobiology. Do we learn adaptive behaviors to manage the pain? 100%.
Right.
Have we adapted to it so much that we are in denial that we are affected by rejection? 100%. But guess what? The neurology and the neurochemistry of rejection is still the same, irregardless of the survival mechanisms we've
Yeah.
created for ourselves. So, what we have to do, I find that when we understand that this is the game that all of us signed up to play, and this is just our biology, it kind of takes its power away. And then you can say, okay, hi, inner critic. I see you. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for really trying to protect me here. Yeah, I could listen to you and play small,
But I'm not today.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. But, I think I really want to go for this
Yeah.
because it's going to serve me. And at the end of the day, what is going to happen? I might get judgment. I might be judged. I might fail. But you know what? I'm not going to die,
Right.
because and then where it really helps, because you might say, well, I don't want to be, I don't want all this negative judgment, say, on social media. I'm afraid that I'm going to look
Mm.
I'm going to be shamed. And it's like, well, okay, but maybe that happens. Unfortunate, yes. But let's say you do get all these negative comments. The truth is that lasts for this long,
Yeah.
because for each of those people that put in a negative content, they are they are gripped by a fear of rejection and doing everything they can to feel in control of their own lives, and they're so
Mm.
consumed in their own lives that this moment only lasted this long. So
I love it.
just let it move, just move on from it,
Yeah.
because it's, yeah.
Yeah. And so imposter syndrome can keep us from really stepping into the big stretches, right? I call those the big stretches that we step into.
Yeah.
And that keeps us playing small, as you mentioned. And so what is it when we're thinking about really taking those big leaps, those stepping out of our comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone where we've really just been in, the box of where it was comfortable, stepping into this new space. What do we need to know about that stretch and really
Oh, yeah.
moving out to that space?
Oh, there's a couple things we could say. The first is, we'll look at it logically.
Mm-hmm.
What can be really helpful
Mm-hmm.
is to derive for yourself how almost everything you're afraid of is the common denominator is fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Because for left unchecked, many of us stop with, oh, I'm really afraid of failure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really afraid of being perceived negatively. I'm really afraid of, not being understood, or whatever it
Right.
might be. And then you're like, okay, cool, I hear you, but take that farther. Because what would happen if you fail? What happens? It's like, okay, well, then if I fail,
Yeah.
then I'm looked upon unfavorably. If I'm looked upon unfavorably, I'm not part of the group. If I'm not part of the group, that feels like rejection. If it's rejection, it's sent to the brain. And
Yeah.
so everything that holds us back, when we look at the the ultimate end of everything that we think is holding us back, it
Mm-hmm.
is just this primal fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Sometimes, looking at it very logically, let's say you've got some amazing opportunity on your plate that is a real big stretch, and all parts of you are saying yes and no at the same time, right? Have you had that experience? It's like
Totally.
yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's just recognizing these no's are totally stemming from this unchecked, real, unchecked fear that, oh my gosh, my brain is worried I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's like, okay, all right, thank you, haha, not going to die if this doesn't come together. Yeah, I might fail, but
Yeah.
what is that going to give me? Oh, it'll give me information. It'll give me experiences. It'll give me, probably a whole new set of values and priorities by virtue of what I've learned. So, if anything, I'll get a lot from it.
Yeah.
Either way, if it succeeds or fails. But you
Yeah.
kind of have to,
Track
that
it
one
through.
path, yeah, you have to kind of travel through it to
Mm-hmm.
get there organically.
Yeah.
The, you know, the uh, the other way to look at busting through that proverbial comfort zone, the way I tend to think of this is, I'll show you here with my body language because I'm with you. But like, let's imagine this circle that I have out in front of me. This is the comfort zone,
Uh-huh.
right? And so here you are in the middle,
Uh-huh.
right? The comfort zone, all it simply is it's just an imaginary boundary, totally arbitrary,
Right.
that separates in your model that separates the predictable possible, which is inside the zone,
Mm-hmm.
from the
Comfort.
perceived impossible.
Yeah. Right.
Now, but it's not objectively impossible. It's impossible by virtue of your beliefs.
Yeah.
So this
Mm-hmm.
boundary is really kind of dictated by your beliefs. And so another way to think of this is that when you get close to the boundary, your brain is unknowingly, or it's actually it's knowingly, but it's telling you, fall back, you're about to die. When in fact it's like, no, no, no. If I bust through this, actually, I'm now in the realm of the impossible, and I prove to myself the impossible is possible, and my boundary has to grow. And so every time you bust through and you say, I must bust through, you actually make the impossible possible,
Yeah.
you know. And
And
so it's just, again,
you're
another way of
expanding
looking
that
at it.
circle each time.
Hmm.
I mean, every time
Hmm.
you're stretching into it, each time you bust through it, you stretch into a new space, and then there's a new
Yeah,
space to stretch into. So
exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, what have you learned as a business owner, as a former, coming from the former corporate world? What have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a business owner?
Just very fundamentally, just because you might be a craftsman or you be a master of your craft does
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily mean you're going to be good at
Hallelujah.
business. And
What were your biggest lessons in in learning, to be the business owner, to be the CEO of your company?
oh my
Um,
gosh, this is going to sound, I don't know if this is trite, but that man, do I so appreciate and love my husband because he is the master of all things business on the side. He is
mhm.
so amazing and incredible. Um, and I mean, this might not be the answer you wanted, but what it has taught me is just how exceptional and how grateful I am to have married the man that I did because he is so good. He really has taken over, and he's like, let me take care of all the business stuff. You could just go do your thing.
Nice. Nice. So having the right people around you.
100%.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Yeah, and you know what? And don't be shy about saying what you're good at,
Yeah,
what you want to
totally.
be doing, what you don't
Yeah.
want to be doing. You're not supposed to do it all.
Okay.
You can't do it all.
Yeah,
You need the
absolutely.
right team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
So, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. So my website has a lot of information. It's alwaysonpurpose.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I hang out a lot on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good place to find me. And it's just my whole name, Amy Eliza Wong. You can find me there. I do have an Instagram account, but that is one of those should things for me where I don't hang out there too much because my inspiration has not led me in that direction. It does every so often, but not so much. But definitely for the book, you could get that anywhere books are sold. Amazon's probably the easiest place, and that's Living on
Yeah.
Purpose.
Well,
Yeah,
excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
And the final question I always close with are, what are three pearls of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience today?
Mm. Well, probably the most fundamentally. this is going to sound so cliche, Cami, but I'm just going to say it because it is so important. You are already whole and complete.
Yeah.
There's nothing you need to prove, there's nothing you need to achieve. You are absolutely, totally whole and complete. And the moment you know that, the game changes.
Yeah.
And then you just get to go create.
Yeah.
You don't have to go prove.
Yeah.
The second is, and this is a hard one for folks to really take on, is it's always working out for you, even when you don't think it is. Because
Mm-hmm.
we grow in two ways: on purpose, because we chose it, and we grow on accident
Yeah.
because we weren't planning for it. But either
Yeah.
way, we're growing. And
Yeah.
so to embrace that as a nugget, that also is a game changer.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
And you
one
want a
more.
third? One
Yep.
more?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And if you genuinely, genuinely, genuinely want to live a life of fulfillment and joy, ease, flow, it really is about being clear about what you want to feel more than what
Mm.
you want to achieve.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, this has been a pleasure. I have loved all of your wisdom you've shared with us today. Thank you for coming and joining us, and just for everything that you're putting out into the world.
Thank you so much. Truly a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah.